Okay, welcome everybody. Good afternoon at this new webinar of the European Society of Medical Imaging Informatics. My name is Peter van Ooyen. And today we will be talking about something that you might have noticed already. Last year, we had the first issue coming out of our book series of the EuSoMII, where we will have a lot of different topics in the field of medical imaging informatics. And we thought it would be nice to give you an idea of how that process works. So today we will be talking about the process of publishing a book together with our partner in this, Springer Nature. And I will also tell you a little bit about our own series and how you could participate in that and help us out there. So without further ado, I think we can start with the presentation, and the first part will be done by Barbara Zöhe from Springer Nature, and she's the editor of Clinical Medicine, and she will talk about, well, publishing 101, how does that work, and especially also in our own book series. So Barbara, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Peter, for the kind introduction and the invitation, and a warm welcome from my side to everybody joining the webinar today to talk about the publishing process at Springer and the book series. So before diving into the webinar, I first wanted to give you a brief introduction of myself. So as Peter kindly shared, I'm the responsible publishing editor for the series. I joined Springer in 2009 and became part of the clinical medicine team 2 years later, managing books and journals in the fields of neurology and intensive care medicine. And I am currently responsible for a book program in radiology, which the series is part of. And I really appreciate the opportunity today to speak with you, with the researchers, help you, give you support and advice in how to publish in the series. So with that being said, I would like to give you a brief overview of the structure of our webinar today. So first of all, a short introduction of Springer as a publishing company and the radiology book program. I will briefly highlight the books we have already published in the series before we take a closer look at the process itself and what Springer can offer you if you decide to become a volume editor or a chapter author. Then Peter will give you a more detailed overview of the development of the series, its structure, its setup, aims and scope, and upcoming topics. And at the end of the webinar, we will have a Q&A session. And I've been told that there's the possibility to post your questions in the question box throughout the presentation. So feel free to do so, and we will address your questions at the end. So Springer's part of Springer Nature. Join me in a short journey throughout Springer's history, which started in 1842 when Julius Springer founded his bookstore and publishing house in Berlin, laying the foundation for the renowned Springer brand today. In 2015, Springer merged with Nature Publishing Group and Macmillan Education, and in 2017, we celebrate the 175th anniversary of the Springer imprint. And also recently, Macmillan and Nature had very exciting anniversaries in 2018 and 2019. And these impressive anniversaries demonstrate the key role scientific publishers have had since the 19th century and how this continues today, with Springer Nature continuing to build these brands and serving the research community. So as our focus today is on the book publishing process, let's take a closer look at Springer Nature as a book publisher. So Springer Nature is the largest academic book publisher in the world, with one of the strongest science, technology, and medicine ebook collections, and also huge collections in the humanities and social sciences. We publish 13,000 new books in English each year, and to date, more than 290,000 books are available to our readers in Springer Nature's webshop or on our content platforms. We publish books across all research areas, STM, humanities, and social sciences, and Springer is also a pioneer in digital book publishing. So we were the first publisher to offer books in all formats, in electronic and print formats are published simultaneously for each book. We take our role very seriously, working with researchers who strive to make the world a better place. And I want to point out 2 initiatives we have recently issued. One is the Sustainable Development Goals Program, the SDGs program, and we are publishing a dedicated open access series to connect researchers and their work to policymakers and business leaders. And the second initiative is the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion initiative, because commitment to diversity is part of our publishing policy and a huge priority. And we are taking to improve diversity by bringing gender balance to the conferences we organize, the peer review population, and across editorial boards. So Springer's book program in radiology, which the series is part of, is one of the biggest portfolios in the clinical medicine program, and we are the market leader in imaging, radiology, and nuclear medicine, publishing over 100 books per year in diagnostic imaging, interventional radiology, neuroradiology, nuclear medicine, and radiation oncology. Program highlights include long-standing book series such as the Medical Radiology series, Springer references, such as clinical neuroradiology published in collaboration with the ESNR, textbooks, guidebooks, and so on. So our portfolio includes up-to-date literature covering broader as well as hot topics, including artificial intelligence, machine learning, radiomics, and most recently, the role of imaging in the diagnosis of COVID-19. We also publish an increasing number of open access books, such as the IDKD Springer series, which you probably know, and we traditionally participate in major international radiology congresses such as ESR, RSNE, and EANM, on site or recently with virtual booths. So on to the series. At Springer, let me say that we are very delighted to publish the EuSoMII book series as part of this program. And I just want to briefly show you the series home on our platform, Springer Link. So there's a dedicated product site for the series where you can see information about the editorial board, our series editors, the aims and scope text for the series. And we have already published 2 volumes. Peter has shown the print version to you before. The first one edited by Peter, Basic Knowledge of Medical Imaging Informatics, published in June last year. And the second one just released this February, The Structured Reporting in Radiology by Mansour Fatehi and Daniel Pinto dos Santos. And I've also put here the tweets we put out into the world when the books were published. So we see that they are also nicely shared on social media. So what are the benefits and what are the steps of publishing a book in this series? Why publish a book, you might ask? So the most important things are publishing a book connects you with your community. It makes your work visible to a global audience. It helps you build your reputation and accelerates your career. So, of course, the most important decision for you as a book author or editor is to select the right publisher. And the authors and editors are at the heart of Springer's work, and we provide a variety of services, advice, and guidance which should help you during the process, from manuscript writing to publication and beyond. I've put here a few services I'd like to bring your attention to. The first one is our book publishing policies. So there are dedicated code of conducts for book authors, book editors, and series editors. These guidelines include information on how to obtain third-party rights, permission, informed consent, and so on. So just really a toolkit which is intended to help you when you tackle a book project. Also, we have various open access publication models for books and chapters available, and also a detailed policy on open access book publishing, because we see that OA books receive more citations, more downloads, and more mentions in social media than a regular or traditional book. And finally, let me point out our search engine optimization tips for book authors, because in a digital world, it's important that your book is found, and this guide book helps you to choose the right title, keywords, and information text to present your book to the audience and increase online findability. So what are now the steps that bring you to book publication? For the series, we have established a workflow which is outlined here. So it all starts with the series editor identifying a topic and appointing a volume editor. Typically, books published in the series are edited volumes, which means that the volume editor chooses chapter authors and invites them to contribute a chapter. So the volume editor then prepares a project outline, which is approved by the series editor, and then the volume editor completes a Springer book proposal form. This book proposal form basically includes the most important information about the book project: the title, who will be contributing, a tentative table of content, a timeline, a realistic one for the manuscript submission. And then the internal and external approval process starts. So the series editors approve, the Springer Clinical Medicine Program Management approves, and then the proposal is accepted, and we issue a publishing agreement for the volume editor. So once the agreement is signed, the volume editor invites the chapter authors, finalizes the TOC, and then Springer Project Management comes in and sends out an information package with manuscript guidelines, permission guidelines to the authors. Once the manuscript is approved by the volume editor, it's handed over to production, typesetting and proofing starts, and once the proof has been approved, we go into the publication process. And then the book is published. So as I said before, we published the book traditionally in electronic format and print format. And another service we offer is the so-called MyCopy service. This is available to all subscribers, like institutions, university hospitals, university libraries. So students, for instance, or researchers have the possibility to get a personal softcover edition of the printed book for a lower price. And this is an option well received by people who say, I have the online book, but I also want a print copy. And this is not really a competitor to the traditional print book, but really an additional service which is well received by the research community. So global dissemination. Now that your book is published, we reach the final step in the process, which is sharing your book with the global research communities via many different channels. So your book will have its dedicated webpage, like I showed you before for the series. It will be available on Springer Link, which is our main content platform. Springer Link currently has more than 50 million users at more than 10,000 institutions worldwide. So this is really global dissemination your book will receive. The book will also be distributed through third parties such as Amazon, iTunes, by traditional booksellers and institutional subscribers via the ebook collections. So there are many other ways by which we can reach readers. We are very dependent on your help here, because you can also promote your book on your own via the flyers, the covers we provide for downloading and sharing with your peers, the self-marketing guides for authors, and banners for institutional websites. We also offer dedicated marketing for your book via electronic newsletters designed to highlight your book to librarians, booksellers, instructors, and individual customers. And we participate in selected international conferences. Finally, Springer Nature has a strong social media presence, where your book will be included in promotional campaigns, which you are welcome to support through your own channels and networks. This is something which works very well for the book series, where we have been issuing tweets like I showed you before. And this is it in a nutshell. So having shared some general information about the publishing process, I would now like to hand over back to Peter, who will give you more insight on the structure and setup of the series.
Yes, thank you, Barbara. I'd like to remind everybody that's listening now that you can put questions in the Q&A, so we'll take them after my presentation. If you can stop sharing, Barbara, then I can share my screen. Yes, thank you. And I will start sharing my screen now. So you should be seeing my presentation now. So I'm Peter van Ooyen. I'm a computer scientist working at the University Medical Center of Groningen, where I'm part of the Department of Radiation Oncology, where I'm doing my research on AI in medical imaging. And I'm also a coordinator of the machine learning lab of the Data Science Center in Health of our University Medical Center, where I'm running projects all over the hospital. So not only within the field of imaging, but also in other fields. And I've been in the EuSoMII already from the start. I was in there when it was still EuroPax. And since it's become EuSoMII, I've also been quite active in all kinds of parts of the board, trying to build our community in the field of medical imaging informatics in Europe. And one of the things that I took upon me was to think about how are we going to communicate with our members and also with radiologists in general within Europe. And one of the things that we came up with was this book series. So that's what I will talk about today. And what I will talk about is why did we want to do this? What is it? What is going to be next? And what can you do within this book series? So at first, why this book series? Well, one of the things that we got asked a couple of years ago by the European Society of Radiology is to provide them some input on their curriculum for the European training curriculum for undergraduate and graduates in radiology, and also for the subspecialization in radiology. So we started to think about, well, what should be in there, what kind of knowledge should be present with the current people that are working in the field of radiology. And in all phases, we've defined what they should know. So in the beginning, you should know about the principles of radiological techniques. And one of those techniques is being able to describe the basic infrastructure of imaging informatics, including PACS, RIS, and applications in AI and deep learning to radiology. So that's in the undergraduate level. And if you go into the level 1 and level 2 training, so years 1 to 5 of the residency in radiology, then the principles of medical imaging informatics are noted. So knowledge about radiology workstations, knowledge about networks, RIS, PACS, but also about standards and codes, software applications, and some specific skills and competences that you would need in the field of medical imaging informatics. Also in the level 2 training, same thing, medical imaging informatics, same topics as in the level 1 training, but then also more extended and more deep into the topics, and also some knowledge related to the management, legislation, and communication. And then in the level 3 training, it's even more knowledge, so a wider scope of knowledge, but also a deepening of knowledge of certain topics. And that's in the subspecialization. So in all those phases, we had the medical imaging informatics included into the curriculum. And that's why we started also thinking about, how are we going to make sure that people are able to do what they want to to gain that information, to gain that knowledge, to gain those skills that they need based on this training curriculum. And then we started looking what is already available, and we saw that there are a lot of volumes already available. Barbara also alluded to it. There are plenty of books around, but what we thought was missing was a kind of entry-level series of booklets, small books, so not very thick volumes with a lot of information, but small volumes, small size that you can easily put in your pocket and that you can read in between, and that allow you to get that knowledge in a very condensed format. So that's why we decided to go talk to Springer and to see if we could do something with such a type of book series. So that's where it started out with. So we wanted to provide small, easy to read books on a very specific topic. So those are topics that are within the curriculum, that are noted there as being of importance for certain levels. So we will also try, when relevant, put the level information on the book, so you also know to what level it belongs. Pick out the different topics. Here you see the first two already mentioned by Barbara, the one on basic knowledge of medical imaging informatics, and the one on structured reporting in radiology. We have 1 or 2 volume editors. We try to, of course, have people from EuSoMII being those volume editors. So that can be people from the board, but it could also be broader people that are interested to do this and that are members of EuSoMII. You can become a volume editor. Those booklets have about 100 to 150 pages, divided up into approximately 10 chapters and in small formats. So I already showed you the print that I have here. It's a small booklet, it's a thin booklet, so you can easily read through something like this. And one thing that's also interesting to mention is that you will have a 20% discount when you are a member of the EuSoMII. So you can get more information from our office on that. So we aim to take a full coverage of the whole curriculum. So there are a lot of topics in imaging informatics. And of course, you know that also it's developing. So more and more topics are added to it. So for this year, we've started to work on the next couple of topics. We have proposals that I already received from the volume editors on a book on natural language processing in radiology, a book on the basics of medical image processing, and a book of an introduction to AI. Those are already from the volume editors. So volume editors were selected. They already drafted up a proposal for the chapters that would be in there and gave some indication about what kind of authors could write those chapters. And we, as the series editors, are now reviewing this and seeing if this is what we expect for the series. And once we approve, then it will go on to Springer, as Barbara already explained. And one volume, we have an editor appointed on radiation and contrast dose registration and regulation. There we're still waiting for the ID about the content of the book. So you see that we have different topics already aligned. And that also brings me to what you can do, because on the one hand, give us feedback on the current volumes. We also discussed with Springer that it could be possible to give updates of the book. So in 2 years' time, have a revision, have a updated version. And in our fast-moving field, I think that's also necessary, because a book in imaging informatics will be outdated fairly soon. So it will not remain for 20 or 30 years exactly the same. So give us feedback. What kind of information are you missing? What kind of information would you like to hear, or would you like to read about in one of the volumes that is already there? You can also let us know, of course, if you especially like the book or how you're using it. It's also information that we would really like to hear from you. But also, what kind of topics do you want to see next? So I showed you some of our ideas, but are there specific topics that you say, oh, we should have a good volume for that? That would be really good for my residency training program, etc. Let us know so we can see if we can get the people together to do that. But also, if you're an EuSoMII member and interested to contribute, let us know. So if you want to participate as an editor of one of the booklets, or if you think, well, I'm very well equipped to write one of the chapters in one such a booklet. I'm very good at one specific topic, and I would like to be able to write it. Let us know, so we can make a database of people that are available to work on this and that are going to give us some input. One thing I'd like to mention in the end, because that's a question I got more often, that they say, yeah, it's nice, you're doing a volume editorship and now you're making money out of it, and yeah, why should we buy your booklets? The money that the volume editors get is not going to the volume editors themselves, but it's going to the EuSoMII. So the EuSoMII is the one that is running this book series, and we will put the money that comes in for the work that we do in a special fund, and we still have to decide exactly how we're going to set that up, but it will be some kind of educational fund that we can use for future projects and support of people. So that concludes what I wanted to share. So I would like to know from the audience, are there any questions that you have? And I will stop sharing my screen so we can see each other again.
I have one question to start with.
Yes.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So the last thing you mentioned, Peter, that was very interesting. What I was thinking of is there also a platform with Springer and with EuSoMII in which we could easily share our ideas, or even like have a meetup with the interested people to discuss? I mean, this could be, this series especially is, I think, very interesting for radiology residents. Is there a platform like that? I mean, it's a very broad audience also, but I think it will be very interesting or to get those most interested people to, brainstorm about different ideas, brainstorm about different volumes of the series.
Maybe I could, I very much appreciate this opportunity that both parties come together today and bring their input, and it's a collaborative effort, otherwise it doesn't work. This is the first webinar of this kind we have started together. I mean, it could be a starting point for others, maybe when a new book is launched, to have some kind of virtual book presentation. There are many ideas possible, and I think that's actually a great point for further discussion. So we would very much like to support this kind of format, especially in a virtual world. It's very well received, and it could provide us a new opportunity. So yeah,
yes, definitely the virtual presentation of, a selection of a chapter, for example,
for
to
instance,
discuss on. That would be very interesting, I think.
That might be an interesting input already for the webinars. So that's something that is definitely possible to organize, of course, from EuSoMII. You know that yourself also. I don't think we have at this moment a platform to really discuss new topics, etc. So if there are people that have ideas, they can just contact us either through EuSoMII or directly, and give their input. Partly the input will come also from the committees within the EuSoMII. So also being in there gives you a more proactive role to give feedback. It was the intention also to make the book series also something, of course, that would be part of our annual meeting when we would physically meet. So a kind of meet the editors or those kind of things. And that's something that hasn't been really possible, of course, in the past couple of years, but I hope that it will be possible this year to do that when we have a possibility of doing a physical meeting again, that we also have a meet the editors, and that they can, well, come at the conference, come to us, talk to us, We might even consider, and then I'm also looking at Barbara, to do something like that during ECR in July, for example.
Yes. Excellent proposal. Yeah, of course. It's a good idea.
Yes, that was also what I was aiming. And I think in general with Springer, you know it better with, I guess as an editor, with general books as well. I mean, this is a very informative book. You have these book presentations and you go all over the world to present your book. And I think for our world, I mean, to do it virtually, I think that will be the first step eventually. But I mean, it's very nice to do everything physical again. I think once it's allowed.
I agree. Yeah.
Do the people listening have any questions? Any topics you particularly would like, or any suggestions?
Another question maybe if the audience can think about it and list their questions. Barbara, you said in the beginning you showed a nice flow chart of how the process goes. I was wondering because you also said that you approach people to for topics or for ideas to publish. So I was wondering how the ratio is actually. Do also people approach you like when they have a nice idea about a book? And
you mean outside of the series, more general topics? Yeah, Peter already mentioned this. The past 2 years have been quite different. In normal times, Springer would have a booth at ECR, which would be a meeting point for people from the community, and then you get to talk, you get to discuss. It's a more personal interaction than maybe it has been now. But if somebody has a project idea, may it be for the series or outside of the series, just drop me an email and I'll be glad to follow up with this. This is also, so proposals for all books are highly welcome, and you can submit them directly and then we'll organize a discussion or something and take it from there. Basically, the process is the same for books outside of the series, but the editorial board perspective or editorial board level is not part of the process, but it's basically similar. Somebody has an idea, he approaches Springer, he or she drafts a project outline, submits it for review. So the basic steps are essentially the same. Just with the series, we have the additional layer of the series editors who also approve the proposal. For a regular or a proposal for a standalone title, you would also have a level of external proposal reviewing. So we would send out a proposal anonymously to external reviewers from our network who would give their assessment of the proposal. But the other steps are basically the same.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I don't see any questions popping up in the chat, so I think everything is clear. We have recorded this session also, so it will be available on the EuSoMII website and on the YouTube channel. So if people want to review it or want to share it with others, then that's possible through those channels. I think that's the final thing that I have to mention. And yeah, I don't see any questions. So I would like to thank Barbara for attending and for giving us an overview of the process at Springer. Pina, thank you for joining in, for asking some of the questions for the Q&A. And I think we'll see each other in the next EuSoMII meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice afternoon, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.